Okay. Okay. Okay, so what is Gen Z again? Gen Z. 1997 and 2012. Okay, who's Gen Z? Still no young. Who here is Gen Z, and why do you suck at being a friend? Oh, me. Wait, no, I am. I am 19. Wow, 1999. Let's go. Is me Gen Z? Nope. Me is not Gen Z. I don't have friends. Fudge you. Fudge you. Me and cuz no common interest. Look, look at all these babies, fluffles. Look at all the baby fluffles in here. Wow. I stopped seeing people during the pandemic. Then depression struck. Yeah. Before the pandemic, honestly, I used to go out a lot more. But I also, I don't know, felt like I didn't work as much. And now I work like all the time. So I don't go out because I don't want to. I want to just stay home and be a potato. But yeah, so I wanted to learn why Gen Z it says sucks at friendship, and it's only getting worse apparently. But I have a feeling it's not really just Gen Z, so I don't know. Let's see. Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Gen Z is still having a problem building community, and I fear that things aren't quite getting better. Hey guys, what's up? It's imuRgency and welcome back to my channel.
I haven't felt a sense of community in a long time.
Today we are back and we're talking again about friendship, the loneliness epidemic, and more specifically for this video, community and the essence and concept of building community, because I think that's been a really buzzy topic recently, especially in light of everything that Gen Z and young people in general have been going through in the world and in the culture, whether that be things with world news, the ongoing loneliness epidemic in youth, or just trying to find a greater sense of
old
purpose
people too.
Outside of the typical 9-to-5 churn and burn. It really seems that regardless of whatever you're really going through, or whatever thing in the world is getting you down and feeling isolated and alone, the catch-all buzzword that's being thrown at us left and right as like this one-size-fits-all solution is community, and the heavy encouragement to seek it, find it, and create it. And that is amazing because there is historical precedent for like the importance of having community and what that is generally supposed to look like if we look at older generations. But it seems like for us, by and large, we just don't know how to do that. In fact, a lot of behaviors, outlooks, perspectives that we are kind of socialized to have, and ones that have been normalized and promoted, especially on social media, kind of do the opposite of building community and friendship. I'm thinking of things like hyper-independence, the art of detachment, the concept of not owing anybody anything, and the whole personality trait of being nonchalant, or the concept of nonchalance in general. We are statistically the loneliest generation to date, and it's important to understand where we're going wrong and what we can do to really fix it. And that's what we're getting into in this video. We need to talk about building community and maintaining solid friendships, because they are at the end of the day very healthy for us. And since we're on the topic of general health, let's take a second to talk about this video sponsor, AG1. AG1 is a research-backed daily health drink that combines a multivitamin, a probiotic, and a blend of superfoods all in one scoop. I personally like AG1 because for one, it's easy. You literally just take a scoop or one of their travel packets, mix it with around 8 to 12 ounces of water or your favorite liquid drink like coconut water or orange juice,
man, that looks nasty to me.
Shake it up and enjoy. I've been drinking AG1 for a couple weeks now, and I can say anecdotally that it's been supporting my energy levels and provides a broad spectrum of vitamins and minerals to support my immune system that I may be missing in my regular diet. AG1 sources the best and highest quality ingredients you can find, with it being gluten-free, dairy-free, paleo, vegan, keto, and having less than 1 gram of naturally occurring sugar. You'd really have a hard time finding a more comprehensive powder on the market. I think that AG1 is great for people that are really trying to get started on their health journey. So if that sounds like you can get started with AG1 by clicking the link in my description to get $20 off your first month of AG1. That's ag1.com/emergency. Thanks so much, AG1, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Let's get back into talking about community building. It's time to talk about community, because community is genuinely so important to a sense of belonging, to a sense of fulfillment, and also just having a social bubble. Whether you have a community in real life or you have a community online, kind of like what we got going on over here. Also, yeah, I did forget to say, like, if you're new to our little community, definitely subscribe to stay in it, and follow me on my socials on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at emergency to maintain that social content.
That's why I like having like our Fluffle Discord and stuff, because like, you know, if you enjoy everyone's company and stuff and the vibe of the overall community of the VTuber you watch, I guess, like, it's fun to just have a space where even if it doesn't always get seen, you can just kind of share pictures of cool things that you find, or cool things on a trip you've gone on, or whatever. You can just kind of share things whenever.
Contract. Right. But when we talk about community, and specifically building community, we need to really define what exactly we mean by it. According to an article from the Stanford Social Innovation Review talking about what is community anyway, very timely, very current. The article's authors, David Chavez and Kian Lee, say that community is not a place, a building, or an organization, nor is it an exchange of information over the internet. Community is both a feeling and a set of relationships among people. People form and maintain communities to meet common
friends,
needs.
people you have
and how we've seen this as Gen Z usually be modeled for us is either through our parents in the communities that they had and brought us up in, whether that be a group of family, friends, neighbors, just staying an active part in each other's lives, helping out with day-to-day things, coming and showing up to different parties, events, gatherings, celebrations. And for those of us whose parents didn't model a good sense of community, I feel like a lot of the mainstream media that we consumed growing up also modeled some sense of community. As unserious as this may sound, a lot of the shows that we grew up on Nickelodeon and Disney did really focus on groups of people, like groups of friends that
I remember, like, growing up, I was best of friends with our next door neighbor, and then my parents became friends with their parents, and we used to have cookouts all the time. And then on the other side, the other neighbor, he'd always be like hanging outside, just like sitting outside in the sun enjoying life. And he'd always have like those turtle chocolates. And if I was out playing and stuff, he'd be like, "Oh," and my parents knew him and everything. And I was like, "Oh, yay, chocolate!" Nowadays, it's like, don't take anything from strangers. Don't do this. Don't do that. You come home right away. Whatever.
Really had a strong sense of community, whether that be things like Victorious, iCarly, Sweet Life on Deck, or I know this isn't a Gen Z thing, but if you grew up with an older sense of taste, then Sex and the City, Insecure, or many other shows that really were community based. They were based around this group of people that has common interests and needs, going through events and life together that strengthen and test bonds. And I think that sense of community has really been lost recently.
I went to a wedding yesterday and I was able to see a lot of like my old church members. Now these are the church members I had when I first moved to Houston, and I was talking to some friends at the table, and one was telling me how her mom has been running around all morning long for fabric and this and cups, and I don't know, something about that just made me realize that our parents, they did community, as in I don't think we could even touch, when it comes to community, we can't touch them. Because really they needed each other, so they really didn't have a choice. You're in a whole new country, you don't really know anyone. And so I began to think, What about us? I feel like these days we don't really emphasize the importance of community because we feel like we don't really need each other. Like I remember growing up,
Yeah, everyone's
someone would
like
have a
so for
celebration and
themselves.
you go to the backyard, all the aunties are just there in the kitchen cooking. The only community we know is to go and be doing brunch. We don't even really come together and cook. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little cheesy. And a lot of times I feel like we don't like being inconvenienced. And so to even go and do for someone is almost like pulling teeth. We're building community online, but in real life, everybody just going their own way. So it's like, where's the village? All I know is I plan on being more intentional about community because it's
Look, I'm freaking like at work 8 hours a day. Then I have to drive and people piss me off on the road. And I don't want to go out and be social. I don't want to. I want to stay home and curl up on the couch and be a potato. That's all I want to do. Is that a crime? Is it?
important. How will our children grow together?
Having friends and a community keeps us healthy and is important for so many other reasons. There are a number of communities outside of friendships and relationships, like coworkers, neighbors, volunteer groups, faith-based groups, interest groups, to name a few.
You know what's like you know what's upsetting though is I look at all this stuff like the volunteering they were doing and stuff and all the being out with friends and cooking together and I'm like, man, I would love to do all of that. I would actually love to do all that, but I'm so just mentally drained after work and everything that I just can't muster up the energy to go do it. Look, after 10-hour shift, I just want to sit down and watch TV. Exactly. I just want to sit down and watch my trash TV of drama between couples and hot people. Okay. Okay. I have the perfect show for you to watch if you hate bad drivers. Hell yeah. Frickin'. You guys don't. You don't want to see driving Hoshi. You don't want to see that. I don't want to do any heavy thinking or any activity whatsoever. Same. As long as you're making time for Jello. Yes. See, Jello doesn't count when it comes to like social battery and everything. Jello doesn't count. My brain wants to be a trash panda for a while. Yeah. Exactly. Just be a trash panda on the couch all weekend. You gotta like recharge your battery a little bit.
And the real value of having community is that it provides us with a sense of purpose and belonging. It could also aid in our personal and professional goals and development, with you constantly getting exposed to new ideas and ways of thinking outside of your own. It also allows you a way to alleviate stress, because you have that network of people that you can talk to that are there to support you, in theory, in moments of stress or crisis that you don't have to pay for, i.e. a therapist. Although I do highly recommend still having a therapist. And finally, and almost more importantly, it can help you build those social skills, because communication is the most important aspect in community building. You can't really build a community if you're not willing to communicate or talk. And that's often where we see a lot of communities or attempts at finding community fail with improper, faulty, inconsistent, or just general bad communication. Like, speaking personally, I've been really grateful over the past couple of months to find and build upon my own sense of community. If y'all have been keeping up with the Roomy/emergency lore, you know that I started running last year, joined a run club, did the whole thing, and eventually found a group of people through that run club to start building community with. And I really feel like through all those things I just listed from psychology today, I feel those things very deeply, because those are all things that community can and does provide. But none of this is to say that this is easy to do by any means, actually. And we're going to talk about that, because finding and building this community is notoriously hard to do as an adult, especially an adult in today's social climate. And you may ask, why specifically is that? Like, why is it so hard to build community? Like, you don't already know and live it. Just follow along for the sake of the video, okay? Why do people not know how to build a community with each other?
Because people don't like people anymore.
One of the main reasons why we see so many people have such a hard time finding community, despite really wanting or feeling like they want that form of connection and belonging, is what I like to call the bad friend epidemic in Gen Z.
People don't like people anymore. Also, there's a lot of freaking rude ass people. Like, there's a lot of rude people for some whatever reason.
Culture. And what this means is kind of what I alluded to a little bit earlier in the video, is that there are a lot of personality traits and a lot of beliefs and preconceived notions about friendship and community in young people, especially within Gen Z, that are and have become popular based on social media and general culture that are conducive to creating bad friends or bad friendships. Like I said before, things that really encourage hyper-individualism, whether that be the rise of therapy speak in everyday relationships, the extremes of the if they wanted to, they would mentality for both friendships and relationships, the concept of not owing anyone anything, not even your mother, and more really contribute to this. Now, I will say, being a victim of or a contributor to the bad friend epidemic doesn't inherently make you a bad person or necessarily even a bad friend. They're just a series of traits that do not make building friendships or community any easier. And let's talk more about these things. First, to start off, I think this thing sort of falls under all the rest of the things that I'm about to talk about, so we're going to lead with it, and that is the fatal flaw theory. Now, this is not something that I made up at all. This has been a very popular theory on TikTok, at least since like 2021. But the greater concept of the fatal flaw theory has been going back for centuries, actually. And this theory is sort of in response to the nature for us as young people to be really quick to cut people off without much conversation or understanding. Like feeling that a friend did something that offended or annoyed you, and without really working it out, you just like cut them off. And with the fatal flaw theory,
yeah, that's kind of true. I feel like that's kind of true. People are just very quick to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. I'm never talking to you again. Bye. Therapy speak has really done a ton of damage to relationships these days. What is therapy speak? When therapy speak does more harm than good. So, using terms like gaslighting, trauma dumping, and boundaries in your everyday life may not be healthy or productive. Huh? After getting into a consistent therapy schedule, you suddenly have the words for what you've been feeling for years, and it feels deeply validating. Finally, you have a dictionary of terms that perfectly describe tough emotions around trauma, depression, anxiety, and more. Now you feel more comfortable using these therapy speak terms all the time, even outside of your therapist's office. Okay, so what is therapy speak? Therapy speak is when people use psychological phrases and mental health language in their daily lives. Since therapy has become more popular and accessible, terms like gaslighting, trauma dumping, and even boundaries have started to overflow outside the therapist's office. You may have heard therapy speak come up in casual conversation, online, or even during moments of conflict. Okay. I mean, I have used these words. So here's some examples. You're with your friend. We were talking about horror movies yesterday and you left the room. Are you okay? Friend number 2. Yeah, it just made me feel triggered. Scary movies remind me of some tough stuff from my past. Wait, what? Why is that bad? Partner, I never said I would pick up groceries today. You must be imagining things again. Partner 2, I feel like you're gaslighting me. You did mention it this morning, and it makes me question myself when you deny it like that. Friend, hey, I noticed you haven't been answering my text lately. Is everything alright? Friend 2, yeah, I've just been feeling really overwhelmed and need some time to recharge. I'm setting boundaries around my phone use so I can focus on self-care. I'm confused. Why is this bad? Maybe we'll learn. Maybe we'll learn why it's bad. It's when you apply them to everything and it puts up walls and stuff. It creates more conflict than it resolves. Huh, okay. So 6 therapy speak terms and how they're misused. Trauma bonding. Trauma is a complicated term that is very subjective. Lately, there have been a lot of offshoot terms popping up to relate to trauma. An example of trauma bonding is when someone becomes emotionally dependent on their partner, yes, who is continually abusing them in some way. Oh, trauma bonding is okay, sorry, no, my brain I was like, wait, trauma bonding is where you like bond with someone over trauma. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then there's trauma dumping, which is the act of sharing intense personal or distressing experience. Yeah, you're like sharing things that really you should only be sharing probably with like, well, with your therapist, right? Cuz people who aren't trained to handle that kind of stuff might not be able to handle it. Maybe there's someone just trying to share something with you, maybe you're struggling with not knowing how to handle it. Or it's on the flip side. For example, if someone asks you if they can share something difficult, you're practicing a healthy way of venting. At times, we may say yes in situations like this, even if we're not in a good place to receive the information, but it's unfair to right away call it trauma dumping if the person is trying to be mindful about it. Okay. Yeah, trauma bonding. We survived a plane crash, so we became close. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is basically making someone feel like they're going crazy. It's often used to describe a person invalidating someone else's experience by denying that it's real. And then there's boundaries, is often used to create healthy distance or space between a person or situation. If you're someone who struggles with anxiety, paranoia, or people pleasing, you may have been advised to set healthy boundaries. Yes. People pleasing, the bane of my existence. The bane of my existence. Some examples of using boundaries in a healthy way would be calmly and openly stating your needs and expectations without blaming or accusing others. I know it's confusing to understand how this stuff can be bad in relationships, but trust me, it's used inappropriately or misused or overused, and it can really do a lot. Yeah, I'm hoping the article will kind of explain too. Offering context for your boundaries. So, and then on the flip side, you could also use boundaries in an unhealthy way. So, not expressing your boundaries and expecting others to read your mind. Okay, yeah. Threatening to cut people off. Changing your boundaries like every 5 seconds. um, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Uh, have you ever felt the urge to say a friend is being OCD just because they keep an extremely tidy home? All right, and then there's narcissism. Main thing to know about narcissism is that it's a personality disorder with very specific criteria. So sometimes certain symptoms or signs of narcissism can show up in a person's personality without them having the disorder. Someone showing selfishness doesn't automatically mean they're a narcissist. I want to know, like, okay, know when to keep these terms in the therapist office. Depending on who you're speaking with or what the situation is, therapy talk may not be the best tool for resolving conflict or tackling other interpersonal problems. What? This explains nothing. I guess just be very careful with like the way you word things. If you're trying to explain to someone that you have certain boundaries, make sure they're consistent, make sure you're explaining exactly why and all that stuff. This didn't it didn't explain it really. Yeah, I was trying to learn how what therapy speak is and how people misuse it, but I don't know. Maybe some fluffle tubers. Maybe some fluffer tubers will shed some light. We'll see. People can hide behind their therapy speak as well or talk down to others as well. I love drink. No, don't talk down to others. It's rude. How rude. I know I said fluffers. Fluffer tuber. Which is Cotton's community name. I'm sorry, I meant fluff. Hold on. Give me a second. Fluffle tuber. Okay? That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Okay. Let's continue.
Suggests is that everyone has a fatal flaw, whether it's being late, whether it's being messy, both messy.
Clock that
What?
T.
Clock it.
Clock that T.
Clock it.
Clock that T.
and
What?
cluttery messy, essentially quirks or things about people that you know are character flaws. And the theory suggests that once you discover what your friend's fatal flaw is, in that moment you have to decide whether or not that's something you can live with. And once you decide, yeah, and if you do decide that your friend's character flaw is something that you can live with, you essentially relinquish the right to get mad at it, to harbor resentment for it, or to try and change that person, because you are essentially at that point just accepting them for who they are. And if they do change on their own, then great. If not, that is still something that you can live with, and you know.
Have you heard of the fatal flaw theory? In psychology and ancient literature, there's a theory that states that in every relationship that you are ever going to have, there will be a fatal flaw. And that character flaw or personality trait may sabotage your relationship. General examples of this could be pride, lack of self-awareness, impulsiveness, poor communication skills. The fatal flaw majority of the time is not being done maliciously, and it's going to be different for every single individual. Now here's the thing. We're all walking around with our own fatal flaws that have been unchecked.
Yeah.
And for us personally, those fatal flaws may not make a huge impact on our day-to-day lives, but they do show up in our relationships. Let's make it real and imagine that you have a friend who's always late. And if you don't have a friend that's always late, you're the friend that's always late. You've argued about
Oh my gosh. I'm not always late, but man, I am late more often than I want to be. Because I used to always be on time or early. I'm an anxious person. If you tell me you're going to be somewhere at a certain time and you're not there, our friendship is over. You were supposed to be there at 7 o'clock, okay? You showed up at 7:01. We're not friends anymore. I can't. You were 1 minute late, okay? 1 minute late. Unacceptable. Can't blame you. The bed and couch have stronger gravity than the sun. Yeah. Can't get up. I have fallen onto the couch and I can't get up. I hate people just assuming everyone waiting for them is okay. Honestly, same. I don't mind waiting a couple minutes, but if I'm waiting for 10 plus minutes, I'm gonna get anxious waiting around. Yeah, I'm okay with me, like, depending on what the excuse is. I'm okay actually waiting for like up to half an hour. But then after that, it's like I just want to go home now. I'm always the one who waits for others. Yeah, it's kind of funny because sometimes, like, I'm the one who's late-ish, sort of. But then I still end up being the one waiting. And I'm like, how? How? I have social anxiety and the person who will always be like 15 minutes early. Damn. I need to up my game here, man. I need to stop being late. God dang it. God dang it. Yeah, exactly. If there's like traffic or something, tell me. Maybe there was an accident on the road or something. Easter Hoshi. Where's my thing? Okay, let's go.
about it over and over and over again. You've talked about it on multiple different occasions. Why can't you just be on time? Every time this happens, they apologize. But the problem with people being late is you're not just mad at the fact that they're late, you're mad at the fact that they don't respect your time. Now you've attached a deeper meaning to this behavior. Eventually, after time and time again of them being late, their excuse is now going to be, you know, this is just who I am. It's their flaw.
This is more of a rule than a theory, but I think that every single one of your close or best friends has a fatal flaw. Maybe they're insecure, maybe they're really attention seeking around boys, Whatever it is, once you identify it, you have to accept it. When I was growing up, I had this friend and she was a liar. The lies didn't hurt anybody, but they were big lies. And I would
you don't have to accept it. If you want to remain friends, you do. But like, you don't have to. If it's too much of like a fatal flaw or whatever, then okay. I don't know. I sort of disagree with that. You don't really have to, but if you want to stay friends, then yeah. Accepting lies? No, absolutely not. Yeah, no. No.
Complained to my mom about it all the time, and eventually she was like, enough. If this is part of her personality, you have to accept it or don't be friends with her anymore.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So was born my rule. Once you identify your close friend's fatal flaw, anytime it flares up, you can't be triggered by it because you have to accept that that's their fatal flaw. And if the fatal flaw bothers you enough, then you have to demote them to a less close friend. The silliest thing is if you are consistently triggered by your friend's fatal flaw, either accept it or demote them, or you'll drive yourself crazy.
Demotion! I had a social worker 2 years ago that was always late. What? And sometimes even canceled without telling me. So I was just waiting a couple hours and then I'd give up and they'd text me 3 to 4 days later like, sorry, I didn't make it. Something came up. A social worker? Like someone you paid? Huh? Huh? What? What? But what if, even if the government paid, they're getting paid. They're getting paid. Oh my god, that's insane. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Fluffle. That's insane. Wow. But yeah, I would fire them. What the hell's the point? You're not doing your job and you're making people feel like poop even more. Wow. A small lie is something that wouldn't burn the bridge, but if they are known to continue to lie, I'm sorry, I can't continue being friends. Yeah, like, if you're just lying all the damn time, no thanks.
I know when hearing that you may have had like a knee-jerk reaction, being like, why would I put up with behavior that I don't personally agree or align with? Like, if I don't want to deal with all that, I'm just gonna drop them as a friend. And that is what the fatal flaw theory looks to challenge. It's essentially a pathway to just meeting people where they are and coming to an understanding. Being like, I know you're not perfect, I'm not perfect either, because everyone has a fatal flaw. Everyone. But coming to an understanding of like what you're willing to deal with or put up with, I think is one of the foundational steps to building quality friendships and building that community. Because it kind of pushes that friendship and that relationship closer to something that's more unconditional and stable. And I feel like this point specifically is something that I'm not 100% committed to of like how I feel friendships and community should go, because I think that the concept of like unconditional love and support is certainly one of the flaws of older generations, where especially in the Black community, once you're kind of in that community, you're no longer necessarily held accountable, where a lot of really bad stuff that people do end up getting swept under the rug, and those people are still able to stay in said community even if they've caused harm to people in said community. Where there is like that sense of like unconditional love or protection that's afforded to those people, when there should be some accountability held there. So again, I'm not 100% committed to like that point specifically.
Yeah, I know of some communities where there is someone in the community causing so much stress for people, and they're just not, they should not be there. But alas, they are, so then everyone else suffers, and yeah.
Yet, I don't know how I feel about that. I think it would be interesting if our generation did get a hold on community building really well, how we would interpret that, because I think that that's something that we do value a little bit more. But this is all to segue, and this may or may not be a very large segue into the conversation of the concept of owing people things. There's been this strong push online, especially recently, towards the concept that like you as an individual don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe strangers anything. You don't owe friends.
Don't do things for people like friends and stuff if all you're gonna do is expect something in return. Don't bother.
Family, anything, whether that be explanations for behavior, owing people grace, owing yourself to be inconvenienced by others, like this general sense that like you don't owe people anything and that anything that you do give to other people is a privilege. And to that I say, again, this is an example of perhaps a little bit of therapy speak, or a very niche and situational statement and sentiment being widely blown out of proportion, where it almost gets to a point where it's like kind of giving like no social skills. Because in my opinion, yes, you do owe people at least a very baseline of communication, kindness, respect, and empathy. I don't really think that those are things that are owed to people, and I'd say that they're kind of more so just like basic social.
I don't expect anything at first, but if I'm the only one doing stuff for others, I give up. Yeah, honestly, I was about to say, like, you know, don't do things for people with the expectation of having them owe you. However, at the same time, don't fall into the hole where you're the one doing everything all the time and they just do nothing. Because there is a difference at some point where they are just taking advantage of you. So yeah.
Skills to building solid friendships and community, especially and almost most importantly when you're building those new friendships and joining or initially building a community. And I think that this sentiment of not owing people anything has inadvertently translated a bit into people just like not really showing up to and for each other because they can. And as an addendum to that, people are also uncomfortable with letting people or giving people the chance to learn how they can show up for them. In order to build a solid community, you need to be okay with being inconvenienced. You need to be okay with even being annoyed with people sometimes.
Everything in life doesn't have to be point A to point B. That is literally purposeless and you miss a lot along the way. But everybody wants to have friends that are ride or dies, or they can go on trips with, or to hang out with, and whatever but no one wants to do the work to become friends and become better friends. Think of it like The Sims. You can't do certain things until you level up in the relationship. Having a night out with your girlfriends? Yeah, they'll come up. Oh, we're gonna hang out on a weekday? Okay, a little bit more. Okay. That is how relationships are built. You can't just expect people to go from 0 to 1,000. That's crazy.
And people, when I say people, I mean especially Gen Z, don't want to be inconvenienced by friends. And also at the same time are afraid to be an inconvenience to friends. There are multiple TikToks of people joking about how, where they borderline want to crash out when a friend calls them unprompted because it's always at the wrong time.
Sometimes I actually get a little irritated when I get a phone call because A, you're calling me and I don't subscribe to that, and B,
don't call me, I only text. I will literally sit there and watch the phone ring.
You're actually interrupting the only reason I have a phone, which is to scroll social media. And now I have to sit there and wait for your call to ring all the way through before I can return to that because I don't want it to seem like I'm ignoring you, even though I am.
But then when they themselves are in need, are afraid to call anyone because they don't want to be a burden, so they just suffer in silence. And that aversion or fear of being inconvenienced doesn't fully benefit either party. And I hate saying this because I hate giving boomers and Gen X their props because you know they're ready to rise up at a moment's notice. But a hard truth we can learn from them is that in order to have a strong sense of community, or just a community in general, is that to be a community member or to be a good friend is to also be inconvenienced from time to time, and to also be okay and willing to do that. That means things like picking up or dropping off friends to the airport, waiting a little longer, compromising to do something with friends as opposed to doing it alone, bringing friends things when they're sick or feeling down, or just being around them as a support when they're feeling down, or even more importantly when they're not at their lowest, just being around people, just to name a few things. And I really think one of the worst things to hit the Gen Z lexicon, the Gen Z and honestly millennial for this too, zeitgeist, was therapy speak. Like, therapy speak really hit the streets harder than you know what in the 80s. Now, what is therapy speak? Because I've said it like 4 or 5 times in this video already. Therapy speak is the incorrect use of jargon from psychology, especially jargon related to psychotherapy and mental health. It tends to be linguistically prescriptive and formal in tone. It includes misusing terms outside of those settings, like gaslighting and narcissist, and the misuse of the word boundary. And the end effect of therapy speak is that it allows people to avoid accountability for their actions and behaviors behaviors. An example of
see.
this is when you go to a friend to tell them about a terrible day you've been having, and they tell you that they're not your therapist and they feel like you're trauma dumping on them, when you're actually just telling them about how your boss was being an a-hole.
Oh my
Which again,
gosh.
this isn't to invalidate like actual instances of things like trauma dumping and establishing those boundaries. But I think with what's happened with therapy speak is that these terms and the connotation with these terms have been brought out of and stretched so far out of their initial meaning that in many cases it's now being used as a way and to avoid holding space for people that are supposed to be close to you, which then creates more distance and friction in friendships, and also inherently devalues the actual seriousness of people that are genuinely going through things like that. Another example being like, instead of apologizing for a lack of communication, someone will say like, oh, I'm just avoidant, which again, not saying that that also can't be true, but saying that kind of absolves you from the accountability of just
Oh my God. Yeah, because then you're just like, oh, well, I'm avoidant, so it's not my fault. And, oh man, what was the other one? I guess, like, in the scenario where, your friend is, like, trying to rant to you or something, or, you know, get stuff off their chest, but you're not really comfortable with what they're telling you, so then you like, oh, you're trauma dumping. I guess maybe, like, it would be better to just kind of be honest with them and be like, hey, you know, I'm sorry you're going through all this stuff, but this is like a lot for me to handle right now. Maybe we can talk about it another time or something. Or something, you know, just be honest with them instead of blaming them for trauma dumping. Or even worse, may lead to some people being more likely to ignore genuine boundaries as they may be able to claim it was made up. Yeah, that's true as well. Gaslight is way more serious than, oh, that's a lie. Yeah, no, gaslighting is like actually making people feel like they're crazy. Leading someone along and making them think a subject is something else is very different. Yes. That's like, I don't know what what is an example of gaslighting? Like saying you is an example of gaslighting. Oh, like saying things like, oh, you're overreacting, that never happened. Maybe you did something and then they're telling you, oh, when you did this, it made me feel this way. And you're sitting there like, nope, that never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Stuff like that.
I'm sorry for the lack of communication. And that brings us back to the concept of not owing people things. It's a misuse of boundaries and the healthy ways to generally set them. People not owing each other things has transcended into the idea that friends are not obligated to do things for you, which has made relationships very transactional. Instead of genuinely doing these things out of kindness because they're friends, and that is what people do when they're friends. And this brings us to another way that community seems to be lost with us, and that is the way that we just be canceling plans. Guilty! I think canceling plans has become such a popular thing.
I'm attacked! I am attacked! No! I don't like
I mean, it's
this.
always been a thing. I don't want to make it seem like Gen Z invented it. But the ways in which people have started canceling plans and the time duration between when the plans were made, when they are, and when the cancellation happens has been getting slimmer and slimmer. And I think that we really need to talk about that. Namely, social media and texting make it easier than ever to cancel plans because there's less face-to-face interaction, there's less pressure. You're not telling someone to their face, hey, sorry, I don't want to come to your thing, which ties into the online disinhibition effect, which we talked about, I believe, in the second to last video, talking about how people are meeting on the internet. Essentially, the online disinhibition effect, to summarize, is that people act differently online than they would if they were face-to-face to you in real life.
That
people
is
feel less
true.
guilty and feel like it's easier to cancel plans over the phone, especially when those plans are last minute, because they don't have to physically see or speak to the person they're canceling on. And in my notes here, I have that people attribute last minute cancellations to social anxiety. So being anxious of like disappointing people or like canceling last minute because you know you're dead ass wrong. And again, I'm not saying this is like a holier than thou sort of thing. I've done this. I actually think I did like a super last minute cancellation last week. And again, this is definitely an issue. The call is also also coming
it.
from inside the house here. But canceling plans hurts us socially. It's one of the reasons why people don't want to throw anything anymore. We talked during the holiday season about how we don't really have traditions anymore, and we don't throw as many parties and celebrations and gatherings. Well, one of the reasons why that is because people are afraid, rightfully so, that no one is going to show up for them, because that's been proven to be the case more often than not. The person who gets their plans canceled on them feels hurt because it essentially feels like a loss, and psychologically actually affects them. And the people who cancel—
oh my god, it always makes me so sad when I hear that someone planned something like a big get together or something, and they were like so excited for it, and you know, they invited a bunch of friends and whatever, and then the day gets there, and or even the day before, and suddenly some of the friends are canceling, and then the day comes and either no one shows up or like one or two people show up. I hate hearing things like that happen. It makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. Reminds me of people who get fired or laid off over text or email. Oh god. That should, like, yeah, not be a thing. Wow. Worst thing ever is someone not calling you on your birthday. Aww. Yeah. Though for me personally, I would prefer not to be on the phone like 10 times during the day. It's fine, just text me happy birthday, we're good. Even worse, promising to come on your birthday, but then you find out that they didn't show up. Yup. Stories like that make me sad. They make me sad. Makes me want to cry sometimes. I'm like, damn, they were so excited and everyone just canceled.
So last minute are generally seen as unreliable and oftentimes don't get invited out again. According to a Harper's Bazaar article, if someone cancels on us, it still affects the brain like a social pain or psychological threat to our safety. Something called loss aversion means that we are twice as affected by a perceived loss than an equivalent gain. So getting bailed on feels much worse when we are on the receiving end than it does when we do it to someone else. It is important to use empathy to imagine how you would feel and respond if someone bailed on you before you decide to do it to them. And I think that that's very real. I think oftentimes when we want to cancel plans, it's because we don't feel like it or because something came up after the fact. But really, unless it is a crazy extenuating circumstance, like if you did commit to going and showing up to these things, you should do everything in your power to show up. Even if it does happen that you show up late, like showing up is better than not showing up at all. And research shows that when it comes to planned cancellations and not wanting to go to things, the pandemic really did have a strong effect on us socially. It hindered a lot of people's social skills, especially for Gen Z, because many, if not all of us, were going through developmental stages socially during the lockdown eras and during the time where things were heavily socially distanced. I know now it's 2025, and that era is around 3 to 5 years ago, and it's shown to still have an effect on us because when we were impacted, many of us were still learning to socialize through college, high school, middle school, even elementary school. We missed out on a lot of that. During that era, people got used to being isolated and not having to hear other people's opinions and thoughts if they didn't want to, which could contribute to why some people feel like they don't owe people anything. In a quote from the Baylor College of Medicine, during the pandemic, people were able to focus more on their own ideas without hearing from outside perspectives. Some people may experience difficulty when dealing with others who have different opinions than their own, which can contribute to the lack of genuine community and friendship building. Another thing that ties into this next point is similar to what I was talking about before, but the general fact that like people now are canceling for things for no good reason. It's not because they have a emergency or something that popped up. They just don't want to go. And because of this whole like we don't owe people anything, that for some people is a valid enough reason just to not show up because they don't feel like it. And again, it is within your right to not go because you don't feel like it, or not show up because you don't feel like it, but you have to acknowledge that those actions do come with consequences, and the consequence to that is access to quality friendships and community. You're not going to build friendships, you're not going to build community with people if you only show up when you want to show up. And that just speaks to the lack of social etiquette that we are establishing as a generation. A problem that's been seen on internet discourse on things like Reddit, TikTok, and Twitter is that people generally lack social traditions and feel personally victimized or attacked when instructions for social events are given. Like not following dress codes at weddings, not following themes at parties. There was one Reddit thread of someone not wanting to get gifts from a gift registry.
What? I don't know. Sometimes I think I think it's cool if you have a party like with a certain dress code and stuff. Like, you know, you want people to dress up and whatever. It's fun. And then some people show up and they're not dressed up and you're like, bruh. Really? What is this? Baby shower gift? Oh, because they didn't want to freaking buy the gifts that are on the registry. I hate when people like in this specific scenario, like that's what they want. So why would you get them stuff that's not on their list and now they're maybe not going to use it? Maybe they have to freaking go exchange it. Like, just get them stuff on the registry.
For someone's wedding or baby shower because they didn't like to be told what to buy. And there were a bunch of people under that thread that also agreed. Other things like showing up to people's housewarming parties empty-handed. And while all these things may sound small or like trivial, like in the grand scheme of everything on earth, it doesn't matter that you didn't get something for your friend's housewarming gift, or does it matter that you didn't dress in theme for a themed party? No. But again, when we talk about things like community, part of being in community is agreeing to take part in the social norm of said group and community. And if it isn't already established that like, yeah, in our group, in our community, it doesn't matter if you're dressing up in theme, it doesn't matter if you get a gift at my homecoming thing or not, then you are still technically breaking that social contract, which then does affect the strength of said bond or said group. People have also been going viral online for very last minute cancellations or just general no-shows to important occasions, life events, and celebrations for friends or people that you think are close to you. Like no one showing up to friends' birthday parties, general celebration parties, or even friends' baby showers.
Don't mind me just crashing out in my bathroom, getting the tears out an hour before my baby shower. This is why I hate celebrating myself. People are like, oh, you never do anything for your birthday. This is the thought. Canceling a week before, classy. Canceling the morning of, questionable. Canceling an hour before is diabolical. To a pregnant woman,
oh my gosh,
or maybe I'm just a human that's really tired of people being inconsiderate.
The video of Bria crying an hour before her baby shower because people were texting her to let her know that they would not be able to make it made me feel so bad, and is really an indicator of the fact that social contracts are just being broken left and right. There is no sense of responsibility towards one another anymore, and it is part of the reason why so many people are wondering where their community is and seeking community, but they are unwilling to do what is necessary in order to build community and be in community with others.
And this is kind of where I want to talk about men really quickly. Men specifically, there is a ton of content online about the male loneliness epidemic and how it's more so socially acceptable / normalized, or even like throw things for each other the way that mixed gender friend groups or women's friend groups do. Like there are TikToks online from guys' girlfriends talking about how they feel bad because none of the guys' friends showed up to the birthday party, or none of the guys' friends showed up to the bar, whatever, what have you. I know that this isn't the case for everybody. There are definitely still male friend groups that do show up and celebrate for each other, but like the culture of like the male loneliness epidemic of like having your friends but not really having friends, or having people that really get you for real, for one, I think has to do with the level of vulnerability, especially when it comes to expressing the fact that like you want your friends to show up for you for your birthday or your housewarming, or if you have like a promotion or like anything. But yeah, we've talked enough about how we as a generation really struggle with building that community. Let's talk a bit about like how we can help circumvent that and build said community. And the simple answer to that is just show up for people. But I know like that's very broad advice that doesn't necessarily help anybody. But we really need to be more comfortable with being honest with
Yeah, exactly, Cedric. Don't go to the bar. You'll spend too much money. Just grab a 12-pack, head on to the house, potato on the couch together, watch some movies.
each other and being more okay with being inconvenienced by people that we care about. Like relationships, whether they're platonic or romantic, aren't going to be great like 100% of the time. Like you're not going to feel super happy all the time. And that's not you settling, that's you building a strong relationship. Because at the end of the day, the anticipation of showing up to this event or coming out to help out a friend or like picking up a friend may not feel great, and you may dread that and you may feel inconvenienced by that. But more often than not, if they're genuinely your friend, when you actually get there, when you actually spend time with them, when you actually hang out with them, and after you hang out with them, you're going to feel good because that's someone you're spending time with that you genuinely love. And that can be the nice thing that you get out of the experience if that's sort of more your vibe. Like what you're getting out of helping out your friend is the fact that helping out people and helping out people that you care about feels good. I also think it's important to establish which boundaries and other things are people actually not owed. Like for example, physical boundaries. If you or someone doesn't like being touched, then you or they don't owe people hugs. And there's nothing inherently rude about that. Being honest about time boundaries, making it clear even if you don't want to go to something, like, yeah, you can still show up or you're going to go, but prefacing it being like, oh, I can't stay very long. Or if you're going to be late, being like, hey, I'm going to be there, but I'm going to be late.
True.
Like really communicating that. Honestly,
because
it's
like
not
at
just
least
Gen
you're
Z,
still
because
going
this can
then.
be applicable to every generation, but especially us as Gen Z, because we are navigating the early adulthood years. We really need to be intentional and clear about what we mean when we say that we want to build community. What we mean when we say we want to have friends. Do we want to have community on our own time, or do we want to have quality, true, and authentic friendships and groups of people to rely on? Because despite what media or things in the world may say, life is a lot easier when you have people you can depend on and when you have a community to back you. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, y'all. I think I've yapped enough. Now I want to hear from you. Do you feel like you have a good group of friends or a good sense of community? If not, how have you been looking for it? And do you see yourself at all in any of the things that we've talked about in this video? This has been a
No, nothing in this video was like me at all. What's a dude gotta do to get pissed drunk with the homies watching Sheila Peen? I don't know, man. That sounds like it would be a boring night. Should watch someone more interesting. What do you mean? What do you mean? This is this is amazing. Yeah, being attacked at canceling plans last minute, being late, being a poopy friend. Hell yeah, let's go. 1 second. No, Cedric, I didn't forget to mute. Lies. Gaslighting. You're gaslighting me. How dare. How dare.